Welcome to the Business of Life podcast. Don't let fear and disengagement dictate the way you run your business or your life. Revolutionize the way things are done. Innovate, affect change, find your purpose. Friends, welcome to another episode of the Business of Life podcast. Today's guest is a guy who does not let circumstances define how his life's going to be. He's a guy that grew up in poverty in the States, grew up in an abusive home, didn't speak till he was 4 years old, has autism, OCD, and a learning disability. And he had to really fight to change the whole narrative of how his life was going to be and not be pigeon-holed in the boxes that people were trying to put him in. One thing I love about him is he's got a great ability to cast a vision of where he wants to go in life and what he wants his life to look like, and then the ability to define a mission and a strategy to help himself get there. 5 degrees later, he's become an organisational psychologist and has helped taken 6 startups from 0 to 1 million. And now he's the Chief Experience Officer at Carpe Noctem Consulting and Coaching. Please welcome with me, Dr. Diem Mooney.
Dr. Diem, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you going?
Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. For the listeners who don't know you, one of the things that I absolutely love about your story is that you really haven't let circumstances define where you can get to in life and how you kind of navigate and narrate your own story. For the people that don't know you, I'd love if you could just give us a bit of an overview, like a flyby of some of the struggles you've faced to get to where you are today.
Sure. That's a lot. Okay. I would say starting off with my upbringing, grew up very dirt poor, very humble beginnings, from a rural area in Alabama. I was diagnosed with autism pretty early on in life because I was nonverbal and what people people consider to be low functioning. So I had challenges in school with learning disability. Um, and growing up, my parents were very unconventional. I found out as an adult it was due to my mother having schizophrenia, but she was unable to keep a job, unable to really live in reality at all times, meaning that me and my siblings were forced to kind of raise ourselves and to take on the financial responsibility for the family. And of course, that comes with its own
Yeah.
suite of challenges there trying to raise yourself. Um, but yes, I mean that'd probably be the start there. Of course, then I joined the military in order to get out of my situation, broaden my horizons, and go to school and all that good stuff.
Yeah. How old was that when you kind of had to start taking the financial responsibility in the family?
Sure. It was my brother and I, around 10 and 11 years
Yeah.
old when we had to start to work and figure out how we were going to, I did like a side job where we would solicit, go door to door, and trying to, sell t-shirts. We would try to figure out how to make enough money to buy, scrap of food, try to find money to pay for motel nights. And then cause in Alabama, you can start working a little younger. So then getting a part-time job, as a stock boy and a little bit of cashiering and all that good stuff until we were able to leave the home.
Wow, it's incredible. And I mean, now 5 degrees later, you know, chief
Yeah.
experience officer at a company.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing transformation. And I think something that I always seem to see a lot of people and you hear a lot is people kind of look for any real reason to disqualify themselves from going somewhere or trying
Yeah.
something that they never thought possible. Like that kind of feeling of not belonging, imposter syndrome, however people describe it. Is that something that you get like with you personally?
Sure, sure. I would say I don't necessarily face imposter syndrome in the way that I guess people think. I am very, I guess, fact and data driven. It's like if I have enough data to support that I can do something, I believe I can. And if I don't know how to do it, I guess I have the growth mindset to where I don't believe that people are born with, automatic talents or automatic abilities. I think that if you have the right mindset and aptitude, you can learn anything. So really, what you put into it, that you get out of it. So I wouldn't say that I don't necessarily deal with imposter syndrome, being that I know and quantify, the effort that I put in anything, to say I got here because I did put some effort in. I took the classes, I, sacrificed, personal time for this, or I used this amount of years experience to develop these skills. And I think that's for anyone, if you put the work into it, then you own it. It doesn't matter about someone else who got it easier. It doesn't matter how, if someone else did it a different way. You put in the work, it's yours.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Because I remember seeing that you've taken, was about 6 startups from 0 to 1 million. Like, that's
Yes.
actually an incredible feat. Well done for that.
Thank
Um,
you.
but part of it, I kind of imagine people, maybe if they've never really achieved that much success, when they get to that place, that's when the kind of doubts and insecurities and that
Mhm.
hit. What kind of advice do you have for people when it gets to that point, and things that you've seen? What would you
Sure.
suggest?
Well, I would say one way to avoid it would be, I feel like imposter syndrome, from when I have spoken to my clients, comes from the idea that you've reached this maximum of some sort. Like imposter syndrome, like like being called doctor. Like, oh, you know what? I don't like being called doctor because I feel like I don't qualify. I'm not good enough to be called the title. There's an implication that there's like this elitism that comes with it in the first place. When in reality, the way I look at it is like, well, yeah, cool. I have a PhD now, but it doesn't matter because I still have so much more to learn. You know, it's not that it's like this is the end all be all. And so, do I deserve to have reached this point? It is, I reached this point. Now, where can I go further? So, when you're trying to avoid imposter syndrome, it's the sense that this is where you are currently, but it doesn't have to be where you are forever. It's not this elite point that no one can reach, so I don't deserve it. It's a point that you've reached. Now, let's keep on going. So don't internalize and focus so much on, do I deserve where I am right now, versus this is where I am right now. Where can I go next?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So good. That's amazing. And that's, I guess, for something that people do, and I see you talk about a lot,
Mm,
is, breaking the boxes that either others put you in or you put yourself in.
exactly. Yep.
Is that one of your big things that you think, kind of that growth mindset? Is that one way to just expand and realize your potential outside of what you think you have?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So I kind of talk to my clients a lot about this idea that I actually learned it from my son. So I have a 6-year-old son, and so when he's in kindergarten, and I realized this. So he was counting. He learned to count to 20, right? So like 1 through 20, he was so proud of himself. He was like, "Oh my God, I'm the first one in my classroom to give you to count to 20." He can count to 20 and backwards, right? He didn't count down, right? And so then I was talking to him, and he was so proud. And he was like, "Oh man, I don't know why I'm the first one. How I could be the first one. Blah blah blah." Right? And he's tall too, like because maybe I'm tall. And I'm like, that's not it. But so I said this, and well, I was like, it's great that you got there. I was like, man, I was like, but there's 21. There's a number 21. And he looked at me and he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "After 20." I was like, "That's great." I was like, "But you do understand that there is a 21." I was like, "And a 22 and a 23, there are numbers that go after that." And he just stared at me for a little bit. And he was like, "Okay." He was like, "Man," he's like, "Well, I want to know then how to get to a bigger number then so I can keep going." And what I realized about people is that there are people who they are stuck in their 1 through 20. They are the proficient. Like he could have said, "No, I want to stick with 1 through 20. I'm the best at 1 through 20, and I'm already the number in my class, and I was first one to learn it. I'm tall, right?" He could have stayed and said, "This is what I want to do," right? Because I already know I'm good at this. I'm comfortable. But he decided, you know what? There's 21. That means that there's something I don't know, and it might be scary, but I want to continue to learn. And really, that's where the growth mindset comes in. It's like you make a choice. You have everyone at this point can say, have to admit, you don't know everything. I don't know everything. Again, that's why I don't care about not that I don't care about PhD, but I don't have imposter syndrome around it because I know that is not an end all be all. That's my 20. That's my 1 through 20 saying, yes, I wrote a whole dissertation. I know all that you're around what I know, but there is no matter what a 21, right? So you don't feel imposter syndrome because I feel like, yes, I do know my 1 through 20, but 21 is still there, 22 is still there. And when you are trying to grow, when you're trying to develop beyond this your scope and your mindset, it's taking an understanding of saying, even when you learn 21, there's 22. Even when you learn 100, there's 1,000. And you can look at that and say, no, I want to stick with my little box and stay with my frame. Or you can explore all the world that is around you that goes beyond the small scope that you understand.
Yeah, it's so true. I remember someone saying to me once, the day you stop learning is the day you really fall behind.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's such
Yeah.
a good mindset and I think it's quite nice because you end up then like having this frame where you're like, well, I can learn from everything and everyone, and you become a lot more open and just able to listen. And I guess, well, that's probably a huge part of your job naturally anyway.
It really is. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
What would be, like, I'm really curious to know, what would be one of the main things that people come to you with? Like, what's
Sure.
the kind of, I guess, and a way I'm pressing this as well, I'm imagining that people almost have this thing at the front end that they want from you, but really you're like, wow, this is actually what we're dealing with.
Yep, exactly. So of course, people would like to know like how to be the most profitable, marketable, whatever, right? Because I have a lot when I do like the one-on-one session, especially. There's someone who's like a CEO or entrepreneur is like, I just want to be successful. I want to be a millionaire. Actually, it's probably the most common. I want $1 million contract, right? And that's what they come to. They're like, I just want to be profitable. I want to leave my job and I want to run my own thing, right? That's what they come with. What I am delivering them is like, okay, well, so that's great. I was like, there are a lot of components that come with that. First, that mindset, the growth mindset, saying that, look, you can't look at this as, yep, gonna be a millionaire. Yes, this, I want the glitz and glam, because like, are you even in the right mind to be able to accept that, to do what it takes to get there? So we start with, again, the very simple concept of a 2.0. So I have them describe like, ideal self. What exactly is that? And it doesn't mean millionaire. It's more in depth than that. It's who you want to be? Like for Diem, technically Dr. Diem, that the facade was my 2.0. I was a kid, didn't know what I was going to do in my life. I was poor, about to join the military, and I had to take a moment to say, who is future self? And I named him Dr. Diem at the time. I didn't have a bachelor's degree at this point. Never took a college class. I said Dr. Diem is going to be it. So like, who is that person? Like, what do I believe in? What's important to me, right? Then even down to where do I want to live? Who's around me? And like different factors like that. I kind of listed out a bunch of things and kind of defined it, right?
Yeah.
That's an important piece that goes with it that people a lot of times skip, and they're like millionaire, money. So we start there, and a lot of are really surprised. But the idea of having to really break down and be so specific to different aspects of your life that you don't think necessarily are that important.
Yeah, no, that's good. And do you also kind of delve into, you've got that kind of vision and that plan going forward, and like, and the things don't actually meet your expectations, like, what are you going to do then?
Yes. Oh yeah, of course. Yes, we
I
do
think
all of that.
a lot of people seem to, well, I know, especially imagine for sports teams. I remember, I don't know if you know rugby at all, but the
Oh
All
yeah.
yeah, that they had this problem for years. They won the first ever World Cup, and then they dominated World Rugby, but could never win a World Cup since. And it
Oh, I
was
see.
until one of the captains, Richie McCaw, came and he goes, "There's obviously something wrong with this team." And so they got in a sports psychologist, and he was like, the big thing they never really visualized is in those moments of those kind of games, at the World Cup that they're going through, what were they going to do and how were they going to react when things were going wrong?
Exactly. Yep.
Once they started preparing that, like, it's not always going to be smooth sailing. What are you going to do? He's like, "Then
Yes.
it could happen. Be
Yes.
ready."
Yeah, exactly. So what I do is I call it like agile psychology. Because of the particular people that I help the most, especially with entrepreneurs, CEOs, agile psychology, meaning that it's more about project planning and taking steps, like very conscious steps, to achieve something measurable. Because again, want to be a millionaire isn't going to describe from you point A to point B how you're going to get there, but instead taking chunks and saying, what are you going to get achieved in a 1 week? We're going to get achieved in 2 weeks. So that way, if you fail, you're only failing within the scope of a small task versus your entire company blowing up to pieces. So with the idea that everything's not going to go as planned every single time, compartmentalizing your work and your attention into smaller chunks helps you. So something changes. Like, what if technically your company has to take a redirection? What if your budget, changes or dwindles? What if your staff, especially in small companies, you lose half of them? You can lose two people, that can be half your staff, right? You have to change directions, and basically by being able to focus on project management and work-life balance, very, very important piece there, work-life balance, you're able to adjust to dealing with these changes and these, downfalls as they come, to get you still to your ultimate goal of being profitable.
Yeah, and I like what you were saying, like, earlier, that you kind of really cast a vision of
Hmm.
what you wanted your life to be like.
You like define it. You have to define
Is
it.
that something that you do with the business as well? Like, all right, we need to get a clear vision of what you guys
Hmm.
are doing and work
Absolutely.
through the strategy part of it. And do you find that a lot, especially in the startup world,
Mm,
they lack some of those elements? So what have you seen common?
absolutely. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, I definitely work a lot with startups. And when I'm speaking with that product owner, that business owner who has this great idea, it's never really the idea that's the problem. It's really they lack the framework for delivering the idea, right?
Yeah,
Because when it comes to creating a product or a service, having a consistent framework is essential. It's really your first step because it revolves around it. You can't hire our employees if they don't know what they're, how to produce the product or the service. You can't really have clients because how are you going to communicate to the client? How are you going to execute whatever they're needing? You can't market because what are you marketing? So a lot of them, they skip by the actual framework. And the thing about with service frameworks and product frameworks, you have to consider customer experience. You get to consider end users. You have to consider employees and training. And it's so many pieces that come with it. So it's overlooked to say, oh, well, I have a great product. It's wonderful. It's going to be so helpful to people and everyone's going to buy it. And it's going to charge $1 million, but
yeah,
it's really taking the time to create these business process models, which can be very complex, but are necessary where you really think about a life cycle, meaning, okay, it's a great product. How do you get your customers? Right now, if I'm your customer, how do I buy it? And they're like, oh, it's easy. You just, you go on my website. How do I get to your website? Well, I can provide the link here. How do I get there? It's like, it shows so many holes. I'm like, okay, now I'm on your website. Now, where do I click? I have no clue. Like, oh, well, I can figure it out. That's the kind of thing you have to think about the life cycle of it.
yeah. I guess like a lot of, I imagine, and especially this like the startup sector, processes haven't really happened yet.
No,
And
exactly. And they haven't even thought about it. They don't even see the significance. A lot of times you don't see the significance of these processes because it seems like second nature. When you're only comparing like Apple, right? Apple, like, oh, the Apple's easy. I can go online. I can do this. Well, that's because they thought about this already.
yeah,
You take for granted all of the interactions that you have day to day because someone has thought it through for you. It's like a kid when they get up in the morning, they're not thinking about turn light switch and the power's on because their parents paid for the bill. They're not thinking about breakfast being made because someone. That's essentially what a lot of times we do, not realizing that other organizations, bigger organizations or more established ones, have thought through all of these things for us. So now when we're entrepreneurs and we're business owners, we're not realizing, oh man, our parents had to do a lot of work,
yeah,
for us.
yeah. A lot of ground has been laid out for us.
Exactly. And that's what the eye opener, when I come into startups, that's probably the biggest eye opener, is to realize how much thought is actually put into a lot of decisions that we take for granted as consumers.
Yeah, yeah, so true. Do you find that people? This is something that I'm really passionate about innovation, right? And I
Mm,
find it. I guess I find it sad that there's a lot of startups and other people like I see their ideas early on, and you're
mm,
like, wow, this is innovative. This is
sure.
different. And then by the time it actually gets to the end stage product, it's no different from what's already out there.
Yep. Yep.
You do you see that a lot as well?
Yes, that happens quite often. A lot of times that's because of market research where they're trying to stay safer and they want to jump into the market hot and what's trendy right now. And they want to make sure there's some guarantees. A lot of times people are afraid to stray too far away from it. I actually have a client I was talking to about that earlier today. It was very risky, but I was like, like it might be worth it. I know it's risky because, the direction and the demographic and people don't usually go that angle. I was like, but it's worth it because it's your unique value proposition. It makes you stand out in the market. You're taking this direction, this technique that people are afraid to even address is a problem. It actually is pretty critical. 'Cause even me, when I make certain posts, to me I'm like, this is kind of obvious. But to other people, I get backlash all the time. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's crazy. That's gonna waste too much corporate money and ROI and this and this and this. And I'm like, that's my stance. This is how I approach it. At the end of the day, you stand firm with what you believe. And many times with products, um, and even services, they kind of stray away from that. They're like, no, I want to be more marketable, I want to be more profitable. So I'm going to take a safer approach. And that's a lot of times so how you end up just kind of saturating a market and you don't really stand out too much and you don't really go very far. You might get a couple of clients, but it doesn't usually last very long.
No, and I mean the thing which I always try and warn people off about that, like obviously it's tried and tested, but I'm like the
Hmm.
people you're up against,
Sure.
you've got some big budgets, man. You don't have
Hmm.
the money to compete with them. But when you do define yourself and you
Hmm.
create something that's really innovative, that's you're competing against no one else.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
That's a great place to
Yes.
be.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there are opportunities, of course, where you don't need to reinvent the wheel. If there's already something established but how I always kind of help them is that you use what's established as a piece or a component of your service, right? That's why I say it's a framework, meaning that under a service, say, you want to address a certain population or problem, then you can have like smaller subproducts. So that one product could be from one app. This product could be from this, website, and you can kind of piece it together and make your own model, piece together a bunch of things that exist and make it into something that is now yours, with the expectation here that you're addressing a new problem or in a more efficient way. So you don't need to create everything on your own, and a lot of times that's very expensive, and takes a long time, and like you said, it's not proven. There's no track record to say it's going to be successful. But you can take what already exists, take it, adapt it to what you want to do, and even combine more than one app or more than one feature, more than one process, and then say, this is now my own custom way of going about this. That's the most effective way of going about it.
Do you find when you are working with the executives and CEOs
Mhm.
that you get a lot of kind of pushback and resistance when you're like, well, you could take the less safe route?
Sure. Um, I feel like it all depends more so on the personality. I've never had someone like just like, no, absolutely not. The way go about, whether it be consulting or coaching, whatever direction I'm taking for that particular project, the way I found that's the most efficient as far as communicating any strategy or idea or recommendation is to come into the room with a plan. So most people think that the facts are what combat opinions, like, oh, well, I have facts to your opinion, so I automatically trump you. And in reality, it's not true, because regardless, you're both just stick. Look on LinkedIn or social media. That will be, if the comment section proves already facts and opinions are irrelevant in the debate. What does trump it is a plan, meaning step one, we're going to do this. Step two, we're going to do this. Step three, we're going to do this. And in the end, this is going to be deliverable. So when I come in and someone's saying, well, I don't like, that option, it's not the best. I'm like, okay, I can spit all the facts I want to about them. I can throw around this jargon and psychology this and PhD that, right? Or I can say, sure, okay, the plan here is for us to do this first. And then it's first phase of discovery, second stage of implementation, third stage of change initiative. And at the end of this is what's going to happen for you. If you decide to go this route, this will be the impact. There you go. And that's it. That's pretty much it. I combine all the facts and evidence to make my plan, but at the end of the day, I never present someone with only facts and say my facts are better than your opinion. It
Yeah.
doesn't get you anywhere.
No, no, it's actually that's something I've been reading about and thinking about a lot lately, is that
Mhm.
kind of how to actually change people's perspective on something.
Mhm.
And you just see so much, I guess, marketing advertising is kind of that, like, push facts. This is
Yep. It
heavy.
doesn't. It just doesn't matter.
It
It
doesn't.
doesn't matter.
But like you said, when you go through a plan, you almost lower the activation energy as it was to change.
Mhm.
Barriers get pushed down. You're like, wow, you can see a path now, and people can
Exactly.
then like
They
kind
get to
of
see the value. It's the fact that at the end of this plan, they're able to actually say, you can say, I am going to deliver this for you. Or if you do this, you're going to deliver this to your customers. So then they say, okay, if I want that delivery, then the rest of the steps make sense to me. Versus again, a fact where there's nothing delivered to someone except, we're not in school. Everyone's not in school. Everyone doesn't want to learn information. It's what am I going to be able to deliver to my client? So giving someone dictionary definitions of whatever isn't going to really help them.
yeah, yeah, true. And one other thing that I love about your content is around the job hiring process. 'Cause,
Yes.
before, actually, I was talking to my brother-in-law who had a very similar experience to some of the stuff I've seen you put on before I
Mm.
was reading your content. And then when I read it, I showed him, and he's like, "Oh, this is amazing." Can you speak to that kind of, I
Sure.
guess, the issues you see in it, and the
Sure.
challenges you're faced in it personally as well?
Sure, sure. So I will say, my passion of all the things that I work on, I do a lot of different things: organizational development, human capital, user experience. My passion has always been for candidate experience. Literally, my whole dissertation was on applicant experience. That's what I've always been drawn to as a career counselor. Um, so when I come at it, look at it, I come at it from technically three different angles. Again, as a career counselor, someone who helped transitioning military that's how I first got into it. I helped transitioning military members convert from military to civilian work and saw the struggles they were facing with their resumes and the hiring process and all of that. As of course, a job seeker myself, and there was a point in which I was looking for work, so I know the experiences I face or the challenges I face, and then also as a member of the hiring team, because I have conducted and facilitated thousands at this point of interviews. So I understand even from the relational standpoint of what they're looking for, the challenges you're facing there. So I feel like I'm in a unique position to have hit technically all of them. So when I'm coming at this, that's where people disagree with me. Like, I still feel, based off of my experience and even the academic background in this topic, that candidate experience is really critical. Understanding the candidate's perspective, not just the people who say yes, not just the people who you like so much, but understanding your entire organizational process around how do you look for them, how do you recruit them, how do you go through and select them, how do you treat them during the interaction, all of that is critical in being able to not only communicate your culture, because that's number one, what you're doing every time you talk to them. Not only is it attracting the right people, it's really important because you want to make sure that your candidate feels comfortable and has the information that you need to make an informed decision, because at the end of the day, you're wanting this to be a partnership, a relationship that's being built. So my stance has always been around that. Like, e-recruitment was technically what I focused on in my dissertation. And the fact that a lot of websites aren't accessible, like people don't consider the accessibility issues or how unuser friendly it is that someone has to, put all this information into the website, and the lack of communication and the desensitization of the interactions between the recruiters and the hiring team and the candidate. It's just, again, it's just the whole process right now for personal selection. And no one's seeing the connection between that and like retention or engagement or high turnover, or lack of cultural communication. And I think that it's something that definitely a lot more attention should go to, even during the pandemic, where they feel like job seekers have less power. And that's what's happening right now. Like, well, we have an overflooding of candidates. We don't care. We'll pick the top person and we'll leave everybody else on red, basically. But you're only basically causing more problems in the future. I see right now, I'm predicting that right now, when this turns and when there's a boom of jobs available and no candidates, their companies have already going to establish a very poor culture, a very poor reputation and brand that they're going to be suffering quite extensively when the tables turn.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I can see that. So I remember one of your posts, you were talking about you like did kind of a mini experiment where you applied for
Oh yeah.
what was it? How many jobs did you
It
apply
was,
for?
oh man, it was a lot. It was like a bunch of just like jobs, and they're like some of them like really probably not even very junior, I mean, not even very senior, like very generic type of roles. Yeah, it was like a few hundred, I think.
Yeah, what happened for the people who didn't read your post? Could you just
Sure.
remind me what happened with it?
Sure, yeah. So for a majority of them, I got no response, like zero response, and I thought it was kind of funny, because technically speaking, some of them had already reached out to me for work, right? So then like they're already in my LinkedIn messages, messaging me like, "Oh, we'd love to talk to you. How are you going for a project?" But then I apply on the portal, I got either silenced or rejected. So the same, the same person, me, DM, get to know when I apply online, but then they're in LinkedIn communicating with me, trying to get me to join their team. So that was one thing I noticed. I thought was really funny that it was actually like, I think like 16 or 17 that happened. So it's kind of ironic. So there's actually all of them were no's too. Like the generic messaging, didn't hear anything back. But at the same time, though, through just networking and just me, kind of just being me and posting, I received like a large number of like contract offers, people wanting me to join their teams, permanently, VP roles all the time. So at the same time, though, I'm still getting all these messages, and so I thought it was it was an interesting perspective to see that through traditional e-recruitment, I'm failing, no matter how many degrees I have, no matter how many experience I have, no matter how unique, I am in these aspects of a resume. And I try different resumes. It doesn't matter. They're being, denied versus me being myself, me working on a brand and, communicating what I believe in, what's important to me, over simply a resume, how much that changes perspective and how much that changes your opportunities.
Yeah. So would that be your advice to people that are going into that kind of job application process and
Mhm.
they experience the algorithms are denying them? Be like,
Sure.
right, you need to kind of work on your personal brand and just start
Yes.
working more to get
Yes.
involved.
Yes. I always, so whenever I do, because I actually do like a lot of pro bono career counseling, working on your professional brand, your personal brand of course leads into it too, but working specifically on your professional brand is so critical. And how, so basically a quick run through of what I usually tell people. So when you're working on your professional brand, you need a branding statement, right? Your branding statement is just, who do you want to make an impact on, and why? Then how do you make an impact? And then why is that a benefit to society? So that's your branding statement. That should be on your profile. That those few sentences that could be on your resume. Technically, that's those sentences. That could be on anything. It needs to be across the board. That's your message. Then focusing on making sure that anything that you communicate out, whether it be you write an article, whether it be that you make a post, whether it be that you make a video, whatever it is, it needs to relate to that branding statement, saying that this is who I am, this is who I want to help, this is why, this is how I help, this is how I benefit society. Taking it back there, because everything then you do and say, whether it be personal, because I tie in my personal life with my personal brand, because this is not like a suit that I put on and I take it off. This is who I am. People want to see that. Like the idea of outgrowing your box. That's not what I do as a CXO. And then I get home and I'm stagnant and I hate learning. It shows, like, I show examples of how my message and what I believe in resonates in both my personal life and my professional life. That's what stands out to people, to see that this is who you are, and not just 1 hour interview, but who you are 24/7. And I recommend that people, when they work on a professional brand, show examples of how you are like this all the time. And you want to make sure that it's real, because if you try to make this, professional brand that's fake, you can't hold it up all the time.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. So, and people will see through it pretty fast as well.
Exactly. It's very obvious. Yeah, it would be very, very obvious. It's not really what you believe in.
Yeah. And so for you, like, kind of going forward just in your regular life now, how important personally is creating vision and like actually spending time to envision what you want in the next
Sure.
phases of your personal and professional life?
Sure, sure. It's actually really, really important, I would say, because even now, it took me almost 10 years to reach my 2.0, technically speaking, mostly because of education requirements. You don't need so much to rush it, and just experience in general, and you're getting where I am. But now I'm like, okay, yep, I have the job title, I have the education, I have the house and family, right? My next one's 3.0. At that point, at the beginning, it was actually towards the end of last year. I was like, okay, I need to start with my 3.0. What is my 3.0? Where do I want to live? Who's in my life? What impact do I want to make? Who do I want to help? I did exactly the same thing as 17-year-old Diem sitting there writing it out. Because I need to, because that provides me then, it gives you a foundation. It makes sure that when you're making decisions, you can go back and say, was that in accordance to who I want to be? Was that in accordance to, where I see myself? Do I want to go? Giving yourself and defining that vision, it helps you stay on track, and it helps you also give you like some metrics. So when you make a decision, you go, okay, that helped me get further along, or did it actually send me backwards? And then also another thing that it actually helps you do is, so I describe a lot of people, especially like who are growing and entrepreneurs or ambitious, whatever, as runners, right? So think about it, you're running and you just start like, I want to go now. I want to start booking it. So you run as fast as speed you can. You're just running, 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 right? So to give yourself 20 minutes, so you run for 20 minutes, right? You are more likely to feel unsatisfied with your run, because you didn't say what fast was. So then you're like, man, I don't think I ran fast enough. You didn't say when to stop. So you're like, I don't think I went far enough. Or you didn't say basically when you should give yourself a break. So you're like, man, I'm so lazy. So basically you're being overcritical because you never defined what that run should look like. Instead, you should not run just yet. You're motivated and you get your running shoes on and you're great. You're right. You say, I want to run 5 miles. And that 5 miles, a good 5 miles, your 2.0 is if I run it in 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
That means that if I run the first 2 miles in 30 minutes, I can take a 30-minute break. Then I can run again. So then in 2 miles, you can go, oh, it only took me 30 minutes. You can stop and congratulate yourself. When you do those things, you feel more satisfied and you feel happier with your life, because you're able to say, I'm doing well, I'm doing what I say I'm going to do, and I'm reaching my goals. That's
Yeah.
the part that's really critical. That's why 2.0s are so important. It keeps you not only in a framework and in a direction, but it overall helps you feel more satisfied with where your life is, and also work-life balance, because it gives you a break. It's saying, I reached my goal. I can take a break now because I'm still going to reach my ultimate goal because I have a plan.
Yeah, that's great. And that kind of really ties into the actual strategy and kind of
Yep.
operational plan that you can create
Hmm.
to define what the
Yep.
actual vision and mission is to
Absolutely.
start with.
Absolutely. And you can do it at a personal level. Yeah. The reason why I use the running example is because most people think it has to be this high level, strategic, operational plan. It really does not. It could be as simple as you achieving an educational goal. Say, I just want to take some classes. Well, you don't need to take all of them in a week, and you can space them out and take a break. Go on vacation. You have time to go to the movies with your spouse, and that's what you do, because these are milestones. As long as you meet them, you should be content there.
Yeah, and I guess as well, like as you kind of create the vision, you can look into the reasons of why you actually wanted it. I remember talking to
Exactly.
someone I
Exactly.
work with within they have they're called a
Hmm.
dream clinic, where it's just helping people realize the dreams they have for their life.
Hmm.
And like some of the people would come in, I want to be earning 250 grand a year, something like that. And he's like,
Yeah.
well, why? He's like, well, I want to have a better life for my family and be able to spend more
Hmm.
time. It's like, well, that's actually the vision. You
Hmm.
want to be able to spend more time with your family. It's not the money. It's not the job.
Exactly. Exactly. It does. It helps us a lot of introspection,
Yeah,
is what it causes them to do. And really, your why can also help you to understand your how. So if your why is I'm gonna spend more time with my family, then your how makes it to be very clear how you spend more time would be easier to figure out, which is okay, I do need to take more breaks because it'd be kind of productive for me to work, slave away and not spend time with my family. So how I achieve my ultimate goal from financial stability would be X, Y, and Z. So
yeah,
you need to know your why, and it directly relates to your how. And again, that
yeah.
goes with the whole milestones.
So true. I mean, as humans, we are unbelievably good at figuring out how to do something when we think we know what we need to do.
Hmm.
You can see quite easily on that like little example. If you thought the thing I have to get is 250 grand, you would
Hmm.
figure out a way to get it. But what you
Yes.
actually really wanted was, I want more time with my family, and that might be
Hmm.
completely. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
I
Yep.
think
Because
that
most want financial stability. Really, when they could throw a number out there, what they're referring to is I would like financial stability and financial freedom.
yeah, yeah, and what that comes with it, and like you
Hmm.
said, without introspection and taking that time to actually look and why
Hmm.
do I want you kind
Exactly.
of you could go
Yep.
down a completely different road to what you're really anticipated on doing, which is very
Exactly. Definitely.
um,
Definitely.
I've got one last question for you
Sure.
before we go today. This is something which I'd love if you could kind of draw from your personal experience and what you've felt kind of growing up. For say for anyone who's in a situation where I guess they feel like they're not worthy, or they're trying to disqualify themselves. They don't
Mhm.
think that they belong at wherever
Yes.
they kind of want themselves to go.
Sure.
What would be your kind of advice, or what you would say to them? What kind of you've learned so far in your life?
Sure, sure. Man, so that definitely kind of describes a lot of my experiences, especially professionally, because I don't look like the traditional psychologist. I've walked into many a rooms where it's the youngest, the only person of color, dreadlocks and tattoos and all of that, ear gauges. And how I prepared for those moments would be again, it goes back to the idea of that plans outweigh opinions and facts, right? So, because I've hit with them with both. People have opinions about me from looking at me, but they also have facts. They also have facts that say people artistic are not able to do certain things. People of color are more likely to do this and this. People with tattoos are associated with this. Those are facts, right? You can look them up. But I come with them and say, well, here's my plan. My plan is this is what I'm going to do. This is where I am. Basically, when I say plan, it doesn't always mean it's for your client. It's not telling them the answer. A plan could be for your own. Basically, when you plan out yourself, it could be, look, I need to where's my value? What value do I bring to people, right? What value do I want to bring to myself? Like you said, my how. How often do I want to do this? What do I not want to do? What do I want to do? What makes me say yes? You create a plan for yourself.
Yeah,
You need to figure out your own developmental plan. When you come into a situation with your actual developmental plan, who you want to be, what you want to do, then everyone's facts and opinions are silenced. It doesn't really matter because going into that situation, this is what I need to do. This is who I need to be. This is where I'm going. And regardless of their facts or their opinions, I already know the steps to get there.
yeah.
It really silences a lot of people's opinions there.
And do you find like you said, you try and tie in the who you want to help, and where it goes outside of
Mm,
yourself? Do you think having that motivation, or that that kind of purpose of something bigger than just you,
mm.
is makes it easier for you to silence the kind of shame voices in the head that say you don't belong or you're not worthy, to
Hmm.
keep pushing forward with your plan?
Sure. I suppose it could actually. I never really considered too much of that piece. I feel like that piece there for me, it helps me stay grounded in knowing, that everything is bigger than me. If you look at just yourself, you can get consumed. I can internalize and run through scenarios or run through. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, why am I doing these things? Why is this even important? Why am I pushing for this? And especially with Canon experience, I'm very passionate about it. Why does it matter if I write another article about it? Why does it matter if I talk about it, do another assessment? It's because I know the experiences that they face and the challenges they face by not having employment or having to go through the anxiety of that process. I would say that having your beneficiary of said dream, having that close, it could be your family. Technically speaking, your beneficiary of your process, your product, whatever you're doing, could be my family has a better life, my children have a better life, right? It just helps you stay grounded and consistent. So there's times when you're less motivated, you can, even the most internally motivated person can go, you know what, I'm fine right here, I'm good. But having that external source to say, you know what, I was doing it for them and I want to achieve these goals for them, it definitely does help you. I wouldn't say necessarily that can alone help me in adjusting to situations in which I don't necessarily feel like I belong. That again is more more internal. Me saying, look, this is where I'm trying to go to. This person is either in my way or they're helping me. Which one is it? That's it. That's the way I look at it. I have my plan and I know where I want to go and what I want to do. I did this in academic situations where I was, like people question my ability to learn and keep up. And I'm like, are you a teacher that's in my way, or are you going to assist me and help me get where I need to go? Work. Are you your manager is going to help me get where I want to go, or am I going to run through you? That's all I'm trying to figure out when I interact with people. That's it.
Well, thank you so much. And also, where can people go to see your content or interact with you at all?
Sure. So the only social media I have actually is LinkedIn because I'm boring and I'm old now. Just a second. So I do have a LinkedIn, just my name. And I have a website that can be accessed from my LinkedIn, probably the easiest way to access the website, where I have a great team that we can definitely work with you or speak with you at either coaching or organizational consulting.
Yeah. Oh, mate, it was brilliant to talk to you today. Thank you
very much for having me.
I feel like I learned a lot.
I appreciate you at the invite.
Yeah, mate. Well, I hope that you have a good 2021.
Thank you.
And that things go a bit smoother than 2020.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for your time again, dear.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you want to join the revolution, follow and subscribe here. And if you want to revolutionize the way your business and your life is run, then contact us to find out more about our consulting and coaching packages. You can contact us via email, admin@hustonconsultants.co.uk.